Hey everybody, here's our feedback video for this week. Lots of teaching moments here. So let's look at Caden first. Caden, thank you so much for doing before and after. This is so great. I love it. Okay, so look at the difference between those skies. Okay, so just by cutting that shutter speed in half, amazing detail we got in the sky because there's less light. Here it was open too long, and you know, that bright sunny day, we got too much light in the sky, and so it was washed out. So light metering, so important. Okay, now here I kind of get the feeling that you were seeing some color in the sky, and you changed a couple of things though. So I see here you have a slower shutter speed. This one's faster. Okay, so here we're getting more light. Okay, so that's good. That would be my recommendation. I wouldn't change two things at the same time, because this one, because of the ISO, even though 1/22 of a second, 1/60th is faster, but it's because the ISO is so much greater that you actually got more light, but none of that beautiful color. So I would, I'm going to recommend this over and over. Just keep your ISO at 100. Don't change it ever. Just set it in your camera. You'll thank me later when you want to print. Okay, and here, let's see the difference. Okay, so we've got a slower shutter speed by half, and we can see so much more detail in the shadow, which I think makes this photograph very interesting. So it was about the shadow detail here. That's what we got. Everything else is the same. Okay, cool. Excellent work, Caden. And let's look at Michaela. Okay, so Michaela, I'm seeing here your early notes, your readings, and then let's take a look at your examples. So the difference between here and here, this image, okay, everything's the same except 1/4 of a second here and 1/8 here. So half of the amount of light here. So yeah, that's going to be darker. So that's really, you know, that's what happened. And I was going to mention that. Do you really have that 1.4 lens? Those are so expensive. Thinking I have one, but I had to get a Master's of Fine Art in photography, so I don't know, you got lucky, I guess. Okay, let's look at these two. So here we've got all the same information except, look at this baby. So here we've got 1/8 of a second, slow. And then here we've got 1/15 of a second. Still basically slow, but almost cut in half, right? So less light. You got to think about 1/8 of a second. Wow, it's going to let in some light. And then 1/15 is going to go faster. So less light gets in. Sometimes you get more detail with less light. That's one of those creative choices. Okay, here, let's see the difference. Alright, so we've got 1/15 of a second versus 1/4 of a second. Big difference in light. So 1/15 of a second, you know, fairly fast, shutter opening and closing. And then 1/4 of a second, whoa, 1/4 of a second. So we get a lot more light. And again, I'm going to say, keep that ISO at 100. Don't play with the ISO. I know all camera manufacturers nowadays, they want you to change the ISO. And I think it's fine for, if you're only doing digital, if you're only doing Instagram, things like that. But if you ever want to go to print, you'll thank me for recommending that. Everyone was so sweet to you too, Michaela. And yeah, I think you have some great before and after examples. So you did it. Good job. Okay, let's look at Dylan. So Dylan's got his raw files here, so I get to show you what happens when I get a raw file. So I get to wait because it's 32.4 megabytes for a few seconds, but it's so rewarding in other ways. So let's see if I can just squeeze this over onto our screen. I'm going to open it in Photoshop. I don't really need to edit it because this is basically just exercises. So now I'm going to show you something you can do in Photoshop that will save you from taking notes when you're taking your light meter readings. So if you go up to File and then File Info, let me squish this over here. That's a word, squish. And look at your camera data, 1/40th of a second, aperture 1.8, ISO 6400, and I know what kind of camera you have, I know what kind of lens you have. Cool. So this is what we need to know though for the light meter reading, and we've got it all here. Okay, so 1/40th of a second. Okay, let's remember that. So I'm going to close it here just because I have it over here. Okay, so it was the first one that was 1/40th, and this one is 1/30th. So goodness gracious, look at how much difference. 1/10 of a second difference, and you got that much more light. See, this light meter reading stuff is crazy. Even though this one I feel like you got slightly more detail. The color even looks richer. Do you see what I mean? So yeah, light meter reading, people say it's antiquated. No, it is not. Okay, the next two you took was of this doorknob. Okay, and then this one is, let's just take a sneak peek. It is 1/125th of a second. Okay, 3200. Huge ISO. Okay, and then this one is, okay, the next one is twice the amount of ISO, but everything else the same. So darker, less sensitivity to light, which is what ISO is, and more sensitivity to light. So, this is kind of a cool, tricky thing that cameras have nowadays, the super high ISO, and a lot of people love that. It works great for digital, but if you ever want to print, this will come out really like pixelated, and so I'm just going to warn you against that. That's just what I've been taught, and it works for me. So, and I often find that people who take my advice do really well at the end of class, and then the people who don't listen to anything, they kind of stay the same. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so here we've got 1/5 of a second, ISO 2000, okay? And 1/10 of a second, ISO 4000. Okay, So you doubled it here. So you not only doubled the shutter speed, letting in more light, but you increased the light sensitivity. So that made it lighter, less sensitivity, and a faster shutter speed. Made it a little bit darker, which is probably better in this case. The best way to start this out is to just focus on one change. If you start trying to change everything, you know, it becomes more complicated. But great work, Dylan. Thank you for all of this information. That's so helpful. And thank you for having raw files. Brilliant. Okay, now we get to Michael. And okay, so what I think you're saying here is this is F2, and then you increase the exposure by two steps. So I think that's something that they talked about in the articles. And then 2 steps can be either you increase the aperture, you doubled it 2 times, or you slow down the shutter speed twice, So if it was 1/500th of a second, now it's 1/1000th. Or no, wait. That would be a decrease, okay? Sorry. I'm never good at math. Like I was saying, 1/500th of a second, if you wanted to add more light, a step greater, then you're going to go 1/250th of a second, so that would be slower, and then 1/125th of a second would be a step slower. So I'm guessing that's what you're saying here, but I would really like you to let me know exactly if that's what you meant and how you changed it. Did you change it through aperture? Did you change it through shutter speed? And then I don't really understand this one, -3 and +3, and yet they look very similar. So I'm not sure what's happening there. Same here, +4 and -4. So you changed the exposure somehow, but I'm not sure how. And because it's not an attached file, I can't go into Photoshop and check. So if you could contact me, Michael, just send me an email or add to this post. I won't count you as late, and just let me know what your settings were, and if you need help figuring that out, I can help you with that if you just attach the files, and then I'll look into it. Okay, I hope this was helpful for everyone, and I will talk to you all soon.